Fellas, say goodbye to Chuck Sherman the boy. I am now a man. I highly recommend you join the club. We are doing the wild thing all night.
Acid house music.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Sherm.
Sherman, I cook all this food. Is that all you gonna eat?
General Sherman realized and understood the importance of house music.
So, do you know anything about techno?
No.
Listen.
Get it on. Yo, what's good, everyone? And welcome back to another brand new episode of Sherm in the Booth. Today is Wednesday, July 7th, 2021. I hope everybody is having an amazing summer so far. I can't believe it's already July. I hope you guys are as excited about this interview as I am because episode 168 features the incredibly talented DJ producer Redux Saints. I connected with Jason on a video interview and had so much fun getting his full story in this one. In episode 168, we got it all in. We talked about becoming Redux Saints. Born and raised in Chicago, Jason has always had a passion for electronic music. During his time in the birthplace of house, he became very interested in learning more about the production aspects of it and was inspired to join Icon Collective and also became the first US graduate from the Toolroom Academy. Needless to say, he took the process very seriously and it's all paying off. We of course talked about his incredible discography. With well over 50 releases to his name in the past 6 years, Redux Saints has built a special catalog of tracks. We ran through some of his biggest releases on labels like Toolroom, Low Ceiling, Incorrect, Hood Politics, and discussed the inspirations behind each track. Super dope sound across the board. We also talked about his label Deep Tech Los Angeles. Jason is the founder and head A&R for his label DTLA, and I really enjoyed hearing his perspective and strategies on how to stand out as a house label in today's world. He's released 37 of his own tracks on DTLA, all absolute fire FYI, and has a smart approach to both the musical and business sides of running a label. So many good pieces of advice in this portion. Redux Saints is someone that I have a lot of respect for because he has always wanted to get better on every single level. He's a true passion for music and is such a great dude who constantly puts others before him. I'm so excited to see what the future holds for him and DTLA. Thank you again for making the time to chat, my man. Let's get into it right now so you guys can hear his story for yourselves. This is episode 168 with Redux Saints. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to a very special episode of Sherm in the Booth. I'm here with Jason Miller, aka Redux Saints, coming to you in Chicago. I'm actually where you usually are, which is Southern California, so the roles are flipped right now. But how's it feel to be back home?
It's nice. I haven't been back to Chicago in several years, so it's good to be back. Can't say I love the weather here. It's kind of like I'd rather be in your place right now, but all things considered, it's good to reconnect with some friends that I haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Is it raining right now then? Because that's how it goes in the Midwest sometimes.
It rains in the morning, or like it gets muggy, like a front comes in, and then all of a sudden, like you need another shower. LA is much different with that dry heat, because then you can just get in the shade and cool off a little bit. Here, it's like, you need like 2 bars of soap after hitting that humidity.
It's humid. I know. Everybody always asks me, like, you wear dark clothes because you're a DJ? And I'm like, I wear dark clothes, yes, because I'm a DJ, but also because I get really bad pit stains in the summer, and I cannot stand it.
There you go.
Right? Yeah. Hey, this is an open, safe space, by the way. If you want to share anything about, any bodily functions that you have as well, we can relate.
That may come not by me sharing, but you just hearing.
We got a comedian, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll be here all 45 minutes. Let's go.
All 45 minutes. Let's go. But like I said before we went live, I have been following you for, I think, 3 years now. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip ahead in one part of the interview because I got into house music in about 2015, 2016. And some of my friends recommended Toolroom. And I had the Dorley remix of Rebirth from like one Toolroom compilation. And I always like to search through all the artists' music, especially my own. And that came up and I was like, oh my God, I just had a flashback. I've known who this guy is for a long, long time. So it means a lot to be talking to you right now.
It's interesting if you go back to listen to that sound. It's almost like melodic tech house, which was popular back then. Because what he had done is he took that was one of the first tracks I did on Icon Collective in Los Angeles after I went there.
Yeah.
And I just lucky to have the connections to actually get Dorley to do it. I mean, who gets Dorley to do like his first EP remix of it? But if you really listen to it, it's kind of like melodic techno. It's kind of like I was doing a lot of that, which is popular now. And I remember back then when I was working with Toolroom, because I went through their academy as well too. They're always like, "Hey man, strip back some of that melodic stuff." One of the guys actually said you needed to have a melodic exorcism. But it's interesting is like what I was doing there has kind of been a little bit more popular now because like the more stripped back tech house stuff is still popular in the States, but it's almost like a bad word in the UK at this point.
Yeah, so true. I really see that a lot. Coming around, everything in cycles 4 or 5 years. House music has always been really consistent, but the genres within it, party tech house, like some of the stuff you've made before, really energetic, leaning on almost like a progressive or bass house, but still really has all those minimal tech elements. That's very, very popular right now. And I think the same thing that happened to EDM, where our generation is like, I love that shit, but I can't go crazy to that all night anymore. I still love it. I want to go to the shows. Can we maybe tone it down a little bit with the melodic stuff like that track? So I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it is calling it a trend because, I feel like you got stuff in waves. The one thing I've been trying to keep true to my music is that it's very different. Like I see the trend of where tech house is going right now. You're getting like scary vocals, kind of like I was joking about, like that video that I was going to do earlier, not naming any names, but like that today, it's still got that underground groove to it, but you're starting to get those eerie. And I'm trying to kind of still stay my course with that. It's like, I can do maybe the synth hits that are popular today that sound a little bit more EDM-ish,
right?
But keep the soulful house vocals. And if you listen to my tracks, I don't really gravitate that far away. I search deep and hard, to really find those type of tracks that kind of where I would say call it like a vocal hook in it. You won't ever hear like that. My tracks don't have a developed hook in it. And that was like beaten into my head when I first was doing my AR sessions with Toolroom, was that you need to have a developed idea. Otherwise, there's no uniqueness to your track from any other track. And I think that's the biggest probably hate that gets on tech house right now is that you just throw that tiny vocal in there, then it doesn't sound really different than all the other 30,000 tech house tracks that got released that week,
Right. I mean, how do you stand out then as a producer in the tech house space where so much of it is based on the foundation of 4 on the floor, some vocals that you chop, percussion, all those sort of things?
Yeah, so I mean, the fundamental of the tech house track to me, or even like a house track, is the groove. So when you think about the groove, the groove is going to be standard. In the groove, you can go get a sample pack and slap 3 tracks on and have a dope groove. So the groove is not the standard. It is the standard that's what you need to build a foundation of it. But that's not the standard anymore because anyone can go build a quick groove out of all the sample packs out there. Right. So it's the idea that's built on the groove. Do you have a melodic hook? Do you have a vocal hook? Are you telling the story in the track? Like if you listen to just the kind of the formula for a pop track, that's telling some story, some emotional bond into that. That's where people why people connect with trance tracks a lot. It's just because there's that emotion involved with it.
Yeah.
And I think like where stuff usually evolves is it moves more progressively towards that. So the eerie vocals are in a way for people, more mainstream people, to connect with it. And that's kind of what happens with the commercialism of the track, is that it goes in that direction. And some people like it, some people don't, but that's just the evolution of kind of like where the sound goes. And again, where I try to kind of, put a little bit of my humor is like, there's certain things that make me laugh. Like, I like, Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson stuff, or like I'll go and find a funny episode of Growing Pains. Yeah. And I'll go and find something funny that was said or something weird or mentioned cocaine or something like that. And I'll pull those samples out and story. Like I have a Music for Lovers where, he goes to a party and he goes, Seaver goes to a party and he goes, hey, do you know they're doing cocaine in the bathroom? And the chick's response is kind of, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
You know, so I made a track like that. So I really try to find like these type of things that like you can kind of like, you'll have a couple vocals that lead into an idea.
Yeah.
That really, you walk away from a Redux Saints track, you know, it may not be the top pop track that you'll be like, I remember something from the track, you know, that something registered, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard so much creativity in your tracks. It reminded me of your track "Break Yourself," where you sample McLovin saying "Break yourself, fool."
Yeah, it's actually Wayne Brady.
Is Wayne Brady? Yeah, right.
That's
right.
But
you spread across a few generations with that. I was like, oh damn, that was sick.
I'm glad that you recognize that, because I was actually this past week and I was playing with friends and I was telling the story behind each one. Like, I'm like, you guess where this one came from? This was the only one out of the 20 I did that someone actually guessed it. He's like, oh yeah, that's the Chappelle show. Go Wayne Brady. And I'm like,
yes, that's what it's. Yes, right. And those are like the deleted episodes. So you're not doing like the most popular like line from movies. You're going one or two steps deeper, which only resonates with people more.
Yeah, it's got to like, you know, it's got to pack a punch. You know, it's got to be like break yourself, fool. I mean, whoever has ever said that before. I mean, like he's literally shooting up people. Go break yourself. Good. I mean, I wish I got that warning before I got to drive. But break yourself, fool. Should I break dance? Should I break dance?
I agree, though. That's great advice for any house producers out there too. It's just about being able to show who you are through your music. And I know, like, and it's interesting, before we went on air, you said a lot of this content that you've been making was stemmed from having more time during the pandemic. And I think it's been a really cool thing to see producers who normally aren't people that want to be on social media, their product is their music. Now they're finding new ways to put, if it is their product is their music, like you, putting a little bit of their personality into that. And I think that has been a blessing, or one of the few good things from the pandemic, at least on my end.
Yeah, I think we've got people who really like understood that, like, you know, kind of grasped it. And then I think there's a lot of people who just like, oh, you know, clubs aren't open, I'm not going to do anything, you know, to it. But
yeah,
no, let's talk like a guy that we both like, John Summit.
Yeah.
Why did John Summit people like John Summit for his personality as well as his music, but his personality on top of it makes tech house fun. It makes it, you know, like, wow, you know, like this guy really having this much fun and like, all these places and still standing after, you know, crushed all those cans on his head and drinking all those, you know. So, but that's the fun part of it. He is that person having that fun. There's no bullshit about it. Right. And people are attracted to that stuff because you're like, oh, dude, this guy loves the music. You know, he's not just there to, you know, for popularity contests. He's not just there, you know, for, you know, other reasons, such what. But you know, it's really someone that they can relate to in doing it. And like that's the best of media, is that you can kind of, you know, relay your personality or your identity behind it. And you're right. That's kind of like what I try to do with my music a little bit, is I try to find the things that like make, like I found his Samuel Jackson used to, he did the Stay at Home on Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. So I turned that into a track. I was like, this would be fun, you know, kind of take it, you know, stay the fuck home. So I turned that into a track. Morgan found, he used to be on Electra Company, which was like this kind of like Sesame Street back in the day. Mm-hmm. And he does this thing where he's a DJ and he goes like, no sucker, no jive. And I couldn't believe it when I found it, because it was just like so smooth, and I put it over the groove, you know, and it's called Do Your Thing. He's like, he goes, ring a ling ding, do your thing. And I'm like, that's a perfect thing. So yeah, a lot of how I discover stuff is kind of just stuff I just find is funny. And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know, I could see myself, you know, maybe like having a couple cocktails and like that coming out of my mouth, and people would be like, what? You know, that kind of thing.
I love that. That's simple advice. I love it, sir. So you mentioned a big Chicago artist, John Summit. You're originally from Chicago. What was it like growing up in Chicago, really? And, you know, the after effect of house music being so popular and getting shipped off and then coming back. What was it like growing up?
I mean, I think it was kind of kept me like on a course of like many influences of like what now. my first, like, we always had Chicago house music. That was around me at all times. But I also grew up loving trance. So there's kind of those elements that show up in Redux Saints, but also the other moniker that I do, which is placebo effect.
Yeah.
But house music for itself is like, that's the one like I think that everything's built on top. It's like that's there. It's never going away. It speaks to people. I always think about it as like some of the tracks I do. It's like, I always think, when would I be playing this track? And a lot of like my house tracks, I kind of picture like the daytime or the, sunset or stuff like that, versus some of my other tracks where I'm like, oh man, you have to be completely wasted at the end of the night to really like, get. But like the house for me is really enjoyable because I just absolutely love the soulful vocal that I'm really trying to like kind of embed in most of my tracks. That's the one that I feel like has the most power and like speaks to me like when I produce.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has so many Chicago elements in it too. You make a lot of music that certainly has some Detroit influence, and I hear a little bit of everything. So you grew up in the Midwest, and Chicago was such a special place to be a producer too.
Yeah. A big struggle is kind of finding your sound. Like your producer, and that doesn't come overnight. No one's like, boom, this is no one's like, like Skrillex or one of those guys that like, he was the first guy to figure out how to use one of these synths, and made it their sound. What I did is like, I kind of had like how I was going with my music, and then I had some training for Toolroom, and I was like, well, there's still elements of West Coast that sound a little bit like bass house. So how do I kind of combine the two without crossing too far into bass house, like Dirty Bird, that has its unique sound, but still making it like kind of UK tech house that had kind of still the groove and the vocal hook into it. So like for so a lot of my tracks in 2020, like starting in April, doing stuff with Low Ceiling, all the tracks had both of those elements of it.
Right.
But, what I've seen, that's kind of come and gone, like since the pandemic, where you're now seeing a little bit more groove-based tracks now. So, I'm always on top of the listening, kind of thinking, well, where's the next move? Can you be ahead of the curve of where stuff's going? Not necessarily that I'm going to be the pioneer of it, but always keeping your ear to like, some of my favorite guys who I'm listening to and where are they going with that music.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, it's definitely worth mentioning that you've put in a lot of hard work to become such a good producer and find your sound. You were the first graduate from the Toolroom Academy in the US. Is that correct? That's incredible. You went to Icon Collective, so you really took a deeper step than, honestly, 95% of people I have on the podcast that learned from YouTube University. Do you remember being like, I want to take this super seriously, I want to learn, I want to pay to learn?
Yeah, so I know myself well, and I know that, I need some terms of like, doing it. Otherwise, I can come up with 18 excuses, and they could be legitimate excuses,
right?
But you like to.
Excuses
so what?
Less,
happened, yeah. Well, what happened was that I was looking to possibly go get my MBA at UCLA. And like, I was really weighing the balance between like, well, do I want to spend this much money and continue doing this, or do I want to invest in something like that I'm passionate about? And ultimately, I made this decision to like Icon. Icon's not cheap. It's not kid around here.
No, yeah, it's not
expensive. But I like that, like compared to all the other schools, there was like an admission process. This was like, they did mind game psychological questions when they had you in an interview, and I walked out of there. I was like, I don't know if I answered that correctly. I was like, I was like, what the fuck just happened to me?
Yeah, that's cool though.
That, and like they if you don't get a C or better, you don't pass in the classes as well too. So that was perfect for me for getting my foundation with it. And then the Toolroom stuff was just like, as I was kind of like zoning into like, okay, you know what? Now I'm kind of going back to like the house that I really loved, and like I can see myself making variations of this, like coming up with the sound on it. And then what happened to me after that too was like, love this other stuff that I used to do when I first started doing Redux. but I was advised, create another moniker because you don't want, to get your fans confused on like, what are you putting out? Are you putting out a lot of techno this time? When you're a big producer, and this is some advice I would give to anyone.
Yeah.
If you're a big producer, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
But like when you're starting up and building your fan base, I would say stick to one genre. Everyone would argue with me about this, but this was some guys who had it and been successful at it. Stick with one genre, and then if you want to venture into other, create another moniker, and then just produce with that. Then otherwise, you will confuse. The fan bases are completely different. Who likes melodic techno and who likes tech house?
Oh yeah.
They may not even like each other. If they saw each other on the street, they might get their switchblades up.
Yeah, those techno elitists. That's how they are. They always got a switchblade on them.
A lot of them don't like trust.
That's very cool though. So you moved to Los Angeles to go to Icon then?
No. I've been living there for a good 5-6 years. I've been there a total of like 11 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it's and one of the reasons that I like it was interesting how it happened. All was like I was looking at it and someone had mentioned to me because that was right like 2014, 15, like Sunburn. You know who Sunburn is?
Of course.
He blew up like out of nowhere. Like he was doing the deep pop songs of like.
He blew up on SoundCloud. Yeah, no, he was huge.
And I loved his stuff because I was a big fan of Deep House. And then all of a sudden he was doing this in this like cool, unique way.
Yeah.
And someone goes to me, he went to Icon. And I literally called him up and signed, submitted my application a day later. And
wow.
I was admitted like a week later. So that's how that journey started.
That's so cool. And I commend you for taking that seriously and really treating your brand, not that you want to treat your brand like a business because you're making music, but you understand it's important to learn, especially from professionals. So I respect that.
And that's actually kind of one of the things we were talking prior to this. It's just like, if you have any experience in the business world of growing something, you know that it does not happen overnight. I think with my current company that I own, literally took 3 to 4 years for that to stabilize, to be a trusted brand in the industry.
Yep.
And once it was trusted, I was able to grow it based on that. Kind of feels the same way with music. It may even be harder with music because there's so many options out there. Let's just put it this way. But like we were saying, everyone in your path is in a different part of their journey. And you just have to kind of let the process take, as long as you have some goals, that will continue to move you along that journey. And I think you're in a good. I think that's a lot of good time why people give up. They think that, hey, I have 8 releases on Toolroom, they're compilations. One might say to yourself, "Oh, dude, you got it made in the shade." No, dude, I don't have a single release with them yet.
Yeah, right. What's next?
Goals, yeah. What's next? You always got to be thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that perspective too. So in 2015, you launched Redux Saints, the brand. 2016, was that your first release? What was that time like for you, and how did you decide to start officially releasing music?
Yeah, it took a while. Just to there were a couple of tracks that I was working at Icon. So you have an editor there, so that they're helping you along it, and it's got to a point where back then I listened to my music now and like I'm you kind of wonder, you're just like, whoa.
Oh, I know, man. I took some stuff off SoundCloud too. I was like, that cannot be out there.
Yeah. So like it's hard to be retrospective now to it because obviously my skills are like night and day from that. But
right,
like I wanted to just to get a piece out and release it, signed on the label. Back then, that was like the biggest dream I ever had.
Yeah.
Quickly that changed from like, okay, can I get this out? Someone actually sign it to like, okay, who's going to sign it? To now, like, well, where is this going to go? Because we know the product music is taking section.
Right. I mean, you came off swinging though. I want to start by again acknowledging you on how much you're crushing it now. You got about 40,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, consistent. You've released so many tracks. Do you know how many tracks you've released? It's probably 50, 60.
Yeah, probably around 60 total.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, my friend. That's pretty impressive. And you've got about 37 tracks released on your own label, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which I love. But I want to first talk about, you mentioned Toolroom a few times, and I did mention the 2016 Doily remix of your track Rebirth. And it's really cool, the tracks that you've released on Toolroom. I think it actually paints a pretty good picture on your growth and your styles and really your range. And 2018 Hands Up with David Ricardo really delivered on that one. It was, I guess, your second release on Toolroom, right? What was that like for you producing this track that was really, really well made? I mean, did you think to yourself, I'm proud of this track, it made it on Toolroom? What was that experience like for you?
You know, every single release that gets on Toolroom, because they, you know, you have to think of Toolroom, you know, they get like 1,000 demos like a week or something like that, you know. So, and you know, I think what Toolroom does really well is like they use the compilation as kind of like a kind of new music platform.
Yeah.
Where they get, you know, people who are somewhat up and coming, release on it, you know, the to get it on there initially, you know, to get it accepted, you know, it's not an easy thing, you know,
No.
like based on the number of people doing, but also like the standards that they have for their music to get on it. So like,
Yeah.
you know, anytime I get it on, like, you know, now's the first time they're actually asking me for tracks versus
Yeah.
submitting it and doing it. So a big step for me. But you know, back then that was like what I wanted to do. I wanted to get something on Toolroom. So I think that from a standard was like the street cred you needed to like start telling people, you know, you had people listen to check out tour, right? You know, so it's like you can say you have a couple on, people would shake their head. They'd be like, oh, yeah, you know, this guy, you know. So I mean, I think, you know, if I think back then, you know, that was the primary goal back then, was tracks on tour. So I had a couple of my original ones remixed by, I think, by a couple guys that made it on there, made by Pete, Ben Remember, Dorley. So those are all quality guys.
Yeah.
Those all made it onto their cons. But I think, yeah, that was maybe one of my first originals. So yeah, getting an original on there was like a big deal for me, because I think I got maybe 3 or 4 remixes of my track. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. And then, you know, like I said, they just recently, they're doing another they do these special comps where it's kind of they call it the new leaders or the new something like that. And they asked me for a track for it, so I'm kind of excited of that. You know, so I had, you know, it's kind of a story here.
Yeah.
But I have my first track single that was supposed to come out June 4th. They gave me too much detail. There were some issues with clearance of some of the vocals on it, but we're still working to get that released, which that will be like a huge stepping stone for me, because it's like, you know, you've got to, they don't just release anyone, you know, on there, because it's almost like you have to be like a guaranteed. It's almost like I don't want to compare, like you got to be like in the mafia, you know. You got to be an earner to get on the label. Because if you're not an earner, you know, they didn't want to invest their time and energy into you. So I think that's a lot of things that sometimes people don't understand too, is that it's a business. You know,
You're a made man. You're a made man.
There you go. After your first
I'm
single.
a Sopranos fan. That was a perfect correlation. That was very well done.
Yeah, I guess that would have been my ceremony, you know, and hopefully I didn't get whacked from behind during the ceremony. That's what I felt like happened. You know, kind of like it was June 4th, you know, and I got whacked and hopefully resurrected and
You're just in the hospital right now. You'll be out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on life support.
So you also released a track called The Power with Mr. Oz, and this one was a lot different than Hands Up. It was a massive rolling bass line that could cause a fucking earthquake, man. I mean, I think that might have been your intention. I don't want to assume, but again, showcasing your range. Let's check out that range real quick. This is Redux Saints and Mr. Oz, The Power on Toolroom Records. Was this track always intended for Toolroom because it was so much different than your previous ones?
Yeah, I think this one was, because I think, a lot of on my tracks have reference tracks. And,
Yeah.
when I do a reference track, a lot of times the reference track will be geared towards the label that I'm kind of going towards.
Sure.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, even like today, if I get a request from someone, it's hard when you create something from scratch.
Yeah.
Or you use a reference track, you send it to a label, and then they may come back with like 14 changes on it. That kind of changes what I'm trying to do. So that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
I say this to anyone that submits stuff to us. When their sound is completely not even close, but I feel like they're a good producer, I will say to them, I'm like, please go back and take a look at like a reference. Use one of my tracks.
Yeah.
If you tell me you use my track as a reference track, might be have a better chance of getting it signed with me because you're kissing my ass. but that's kind of one of the things I would say to them. Now, for my label, on the AR process here, I really am really selective into like what I put on our track. Yeah, it is sort of a business. We're going to invest the time, promo, press, videos, and all this stuff. I'm not looking to make money. I just want to break even. So you're not costing money. So the idea is that you got to have some street credit. Unfortunately, some people don't get that. It's like, okay, my track is dope. You should love it and release it. I got in some Facebook fights with people about that. Worst thing you can ever do. But then you realistically have to say, like, okay, when you submit stuff to these labels, not get bent about it, just being like, you may have caught the AR guy on a bad day. Maybe he was listening to a certain music for you that pissed him off, and he's just like, whatever. And you know your track fits. So, there's all these different reasons, like why you should kind of, if you're focusing on a label, you should support them, the best you can. Don't annoy them. Don't send them every single track you have. Yeah. But use a reference track 100% for it. And I think that those are some tools that'll get you in the door. I'm not saying it's going to get you some, gets you in a good position.
Great advice there. Great advice. I knew these starting with these Toolroom tracks was going to open up the conversation. So, and
I mean, the Toolroom tracks are good too, exactly, because like it's, I think that's kind of, it was the primary goal for so long. It was like Toolroom. Then I started the label. Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, okay, now I can start being a little bit of, more creative and not here to like a certain style. Right. That's what I was saying. Toolroom is very specific on what they want to label, and good for them. I mean, that's their brand. That's what the music and the imagery that they want to do. It's different than Repopulate Mars. It's different than, Jamie Jones's label. It's different sounds, Yeah. So that's why, here's another piece of advice. If you're getting struggling with your submission process, create your own label. Get your music out there. Just go ahead and do it. Stop fucking around. Stop waiting for them to get back to you, because they may never, Yeah. I'm a little bit guilty of that as well too, because things happen. You get busy, Just don't get mad. Just make things happen for yourself. And the best way to make things happen for yourself is to start your own label and release stuff. Get your stuff out once a month, which is kind of like what I'm doing now.
Absolutely, Jason. Create your own opportunities. That was one of the reasons I started this podcast. I grew up in Indiana, and I was a DJ in college, and I wanted to come to Chicago and continue to pursue passion. I thought it was going to be easier for whatever reason. And basically everyone was like, who are you? Fuck off, for, lack of a better example. And Chicago's you got to cut your teeth there, man. And I was like, I can't keep going into these clubs and introducing myself to DJs that are playing, or like trying to get to know whoever the decision maker is. A lot of times I was going to this stuff by myself, which I have no regrets about that. But I'd always wanted to do a podcast. And I said to myself, what if this was an interview-based show, and I just start interviewing these people, and I can have one-on-one time with them, not at the club. And now we're at 168 episodes, and I have the most incredible network of friends and people that I can help out with, and things that I can help them with. And I couldn't agree with you more there, man.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing here is that people like doing business with people that they like. So if they know it on a personal level,
Yeah.
you know, I try easy on people when they do the wrong thing, but sometimes you just have to point it out. Like where you'll get the IM at 2 a.m. in the morning saying, you know, can you listen to my mix and follow me? I'll be like, I don't even like take me out to dinner first, you know? Buy me some chocolates, you know, before you know. So
Buy me some chocolates. Yeah, so true.
Old fashioned.
Okay, last but not least, and real quick, Carnival Soul with Shane Fontaine. Just to wrap it around, these Toolroom tracks are all pretty different, but they all do have that Toolroom echelon. And
Absolutely.
Carnival Soul, this one was very creative, and I heard a lot of elements on tracks you've released on your label too in this one, comparatively to The Power and Hands Up. Just real quick, what was it like making this track with Shane? Because it's pretty fucking unique and cool.
Yeah, so Shane had the original idea to me, brought the original idea to me, and you know, the rest was like, yeah, it sounds a little bit like carnival-ish, you know.
Yeah.
So like I found you know, the original vocals on it was more like, I think he was doing like some type of rap over it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I got a hold of it, and then I found like a carnival sample pack.
Nice.
And it had to do with you know, for your soul. So like I kind of made the connection with carnival and soul, because it's like a house track, but it's carnivals. Then to add some extra fun to it, I found this mariachi gritos pack that I had. I love like the mariachi sound, like how they shout, you know, and they do us. I can't do it. So I found that pack, and I added in a couple of those elements into it, and it made it just very like kind of happy, festive, but still sounded underground with it. So It's like all the right pieces came together with that. With Shane, I've known for a while. I've met him. I've done a lot of collabs with people that I've met at Toolroom Academy, and it just came out. It came out really well in the end. Now, there are 5 versions of that track before we got it.
5 versions
with Toolroom. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I still love the original version. Sometimes that's what happens. Is like, you know, you submit it and they'll come back with feedback. Well, 5 tracks later, you know, we finally got it right with their AR team, and you know, it's that version. Least, but you know, I can send you over the original version of it, and you'll just be like, oh, like, okay, I like that. I like that one too. It's a tad bit different. It's a little less of a, you know, of a rolling bass line, but you know, so yeah, and that's kind of funny. Is like with the single release that eventually have come out in Toolroom.
Yeah,
that one must have had 18 versions of it before.
My God,
and that one is happen, so I'm crossing my fingers.
I hope so too. Well, congratulations on everything with Toolroom, though. Obviously, you're made man, or you will be here soon. So I know Toolroom and Mark Knight are one of the most influential labels, and he's one of the biggest tastemakers in the game too. So I know any house producer out here is nodding their head as well. So very cool.
I guess the Toolroom hashtag Toolroom family to the next level, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you mentioned Low Ceiling earlier. You've released 2 tracks, Gonna Be All Right and Do Your Thing. Both absolute scorchers, but completely different vibes and tempos. Again, showcasing your range. Now, Low Ceiling, I've interviewed a lot of people who have released on this label, and they only have the highest things to say, from demo submission process to release to promotion. What was it like releasing on that label?
Yeah, so this is one of those instances where, like, so Don't Blink. I literally love their music, so I would just play it all the time. And after just tagging their ass so many times, they eventually said, "Submit us some music." So that's really how it worked out. It was over Twitter too. It was like, you know, I was putting them in my mixes and doing my Beatport charts with them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so eventually they said, "Hey, just send us the demo." So, you know, it was cool working with them. They're very meticulous. They want their music as well too.
Yeah.
So like a couple versions after, you know, he gave so there are people that give like high level feedback where you have to interpret what they're looking for. There are people who are like very meticulous.
Yeah.
like, hey, you need to change this sound and this bar and do this and do that. That was what it was. The experience was more with Low Ceiling, but the first release, it did really, really well. I think it was my best selling track.
Yeah.
Be All Right. And for that time, that was the right sound for the right time.
Yeah.
Now, I came back with another track with them 2 months later. They were already evolving their sound at the label. So like, I released That's Right, was actually supposed to be the follow-up on Low Ceiling, that was on a DTLA track, but they said they had changed their sound in like the 45-day span. So I went back to the drawing board, and the Do Your Thing is the Morgan Freeman one from company. So I was able to get to do that one. That one I actually found. You got to look up that video though of it of him on Electric Company. It's pretty funny.
Let's check it out real quick. This is Redux Saints, Do Your Thing on Low Ceiling.
Okay, here's the first one now.
Jesus, you did your research. Front to back, great productions. Both tracks that are going on the USB. And I love the vibe so much. And shout out to Low Ceiling and Don't Blink. So I'm here in California right now. We got to talk about hood politics. San Diego boys, DJ Susan, More Than Friends, Nutty. You had an awesome release. You Can't Front. Absolute heat. And I wanted to put this one kind of in the middle because, I mean, I can say it time and time again, man. Like, you have a really, really special range. But this track was super dope because, DJ Susan has said to me many times, I get so many different types of submissions. And although we do try and have a sound, there are tracks that come to me and I say, I have to have this track. This can't go on another label. And I really like this one for Hood Politics. And I don't know if you had that similar experience or that's what he said, but it was a great track. Let's check this one out before Redux tells you where the inspiration came from. This is Redux Saints, You Can't Front on Hood Politics Records.
You can't front on that.
Yeah, so do you know can you tell me where that vocal came from? Here's a little quiz.
Yeah.
So I ripped it from the Beastie Boys.
Really?
Yes. I hope I don't get in trouble for that one, saying that on your podcast, but yeah.
No.
Yeah, so it's in one of the songs. It's not the main vocal of it. So that's another key thing. If you're gonna rip stuff or borrow stuff, don't take the main vocal off of a track. But in one of their tracks, they go, "You can't front." So this was kind of something that I just put over like the groove for it. So if you say like you hear like the vocals that are kind of like unaudible, that's actually him saying the verse of it. But I made it so unaudible that no one could actually tell that it was taken.
There you go.
Hopefully they won't get in trouble for that.
No.
What inspired that was that Beastie Boys thing on Apple came out right around that time when I produced the track. I think they were telling about the story of the Beastie Boys or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I was so inspired after watching that. I was just going through all the acapellas that I found on SoundCloud for Beastie Boys, and I was just like, "Oh, I gotta try this, gotta try this." And believe it or not, I wanted to go 18 different directions, but that's the one that kind of worked out the best. So it was a good fit with the fellows over at Hood Politics. Yeah,
man, it's a sick track. That's very cool. Very cool. I love that creativity. I'm definitely going to be playing this because now when we actually do the interviews, not everybody has heard your music. And when we talk about it in context, I like to play it right before you speak about it. So the people have known exactly what you're talking about, my man.
Very, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That extra 10%. So we got to talk about Incorrect, Anthony Atala. Real fast. Did you meet him in Chicago, or what's your relationship with him?
I met him in I probably met him. I don't know. When I was younger, I don't really remember much about it. But I actually officially met him in Vegas this past October.
Okay.
But we've been in contact, and just being us both from Chicago, we got introduced by other people. Like, hey, you should talk to Anthony and whatever.
Right.
So Anthony's been cool. Like my first track, Ain't Got Time, did really, really well.
Really well. Well, let's find out why this one might have done really well. This is Redux Saints, Ain't Got Time, on Incorrect Music.
Watch it there. Think I'm lame. Watch it there. Ain't got time for that.
Really well on his label, and then I got a chance to do my EP with him recently. Kind of different signs and stuff, but what is Anthony is like a good barometer of like where the sound's going, because he's not releasing tech what you would call tech house. It's got to have some swag to it or something, some melodic kind of style to it for him to sign it right now. And he's got some awesome guys on that label, so when he gave me the chance to do it, I worked on the 2 tracks, and he was cool enough to give me AR feedback on both tracks, and so it was very cool to be able to release on Incorrect. It's a great label.
Great label, and your productions really speak for themselves. The second build in Ain't Got Time is swaggy. Yeah, that's the exact word for it.
So one of the things like I tell people is like a lot of my songs, like, and I'll send you over the new one that's coming out on DTLA, but like, you'll see this, there's always a part in it where I kind of like feel like when you're dancing, you should like pause and do like a Heisman kind of, and that's like kind of like this, like, I always want to have like some part like that in my track. So it's kind of like, like you're going like, kind of like during the groove, like read pause and do it like that. There he is. He finally decided to join. Hey, say hi, buddy. Okay. Anyway, but that was one of those first tracks that I had, like one of those cool, like kind of like sidestep moves that, like, if you were dancing on, ain't got time for that. So yeah, that was that. And I found really, there must have been this one vocal pack where like maybe 4 or 5 tracks came from. That was one of them, but I think I used and abused this one pack, because it's like you find it. Yeah, you gotta get them out fast, man. Otherwise, you're gonna have 18 other chat. I'm trying to think who I had the same one as Will. Was it Will Taylor or someone that came out? But I thought my track was better and did better.
Yeah, you do got to be careful with the sample packs.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like, I think Chapter and Verse used a vocal that I had in one of my melodic techno tracks from like a year ago. But I'm like, hey, where'd you get that pack? Where'd you get that from? What pack was that, buddy?
That's awesome. Love Chapter and Verse. And speaking of Chapter and Verse, he's released on your label. I want to take a sec to talk about DTLA. Give us the breakdown. I know you're the label head and A&R. I said earlier you released 37 tracks on your own label. You give back not only to people who need a platform, but some of your best work has been released on it. It's really, really special, something special that you've been building.
So starting the label was because I had built I had actually been a part of a label called Crafted originally.
Okay, I think I've heard of that actually.
They're based out of the UK.
Okay.
Their Crafted Underground was doing a lot of tech house, but they're more for like progressive house UK, because kind of more like melodic techno.
Gotcha.
They They also had Crafted Digital, which was anyway. So when I came on as a partner there, I was trying to do something unique. So I created. I was living downtown, and I just was trying to steal off the acronym of downtown Los Angeles. We call it like Deep Tech Los Angeles. So I created a brand there, and I just didn't feel like the guys were like helping it move along fast enough. So I left there and started it off as its own label. And that was like kind of like beginning of 2019. The nice cool thing about like how I've kind of run the labels, I got to sit next to Toolroom for a good period of time. You got to observe like how they rolled stuff out with. Like I worked with their marketing director, Miles Shackleton. I worked with their AR guys for a long time. They're a great model. Understand is like not a lot of these big labels are run as functioning companies.
True.
Toolroom that defected, and a couple others are fully functional staffed companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me coming from like a business background, that's one of the coolest things to see is like actually, you can be doing your passion and actually running it like a business. Because a lot of these guys, they're running labels a little bit of like smoke and mirrors, about and the cool thing about Toolroom is the consistency. Always, how they rolled stuff out. So, I kind of mimicked like the compilations. How do we do the compilations? Well, we roll them out like that. We make it as a platform for people, who are up and coming. It's almost like the platform to be heard.
Yeah.
Then, like kind of we were joking around in the Mafia, you get made.
Yep.
You go to the single release to do it.
Yep.
So once you get it to a single release, then you can continue. But the single release, you have to earn that, or you've earned it. You paid your dues, it's like other places. You know what I mean? You're not going to come to me like having a couple of releases and then I'm just going to do a single release,
right?
Unless maybe my cousin or something. I don't know. Anyway, but the point is that like that's worked really, really well because it gives a chance for me to like give people like we don't sign things as is. Like I'll give a lot of feedback and stuff like that. So like kind of like how you do your show.
Yeah.
For me to kind of connect with like producers being like, hey, first of all, if you're not receptive to some feedback on a track, I don't want you on my label to begin with.
Yeah. Well said.
You can't take any feedback that there needs to be a sign or tweak here. Now, if you're done with the track and you come back to me and say like, hey, Jason, how about the next one? That's cool. But if you're against getting feedback, you're not DTLA material. I can tell you that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So any effect. So we built it of the compilation, and then you could have multiple compilation releases to then graduate to a single release. But we wanted to set a bar where there's like there's a bar to be here, and then there's a bar to be here, and that way I could be a lot more selective with like who I choose and put on both sides of it. And maybe a guy who's at here, I say back to him, and this is really a hard thing. Sometimes like I'm giving feedback to guys who've been producing for. I'm like, and they're like, it's like tough, it doesn't fit. You get a little nervous sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
But it's worked well because I think people really respect that. Like, if you put the energy and invest in the tracks and they feel that you're like, you want to see it be as successful, as they do. And you kind of create that bond where, like you have a relationship with them instead of like, some of these labels and even some of them that I've released on, they're releasing one every week. It's just who's filling it in this week? Did it? And once it gets that next week, if you didn't do really great, who even remembers what you did? I didn't really like that. I'd rather, don't get me wrong, we may do it every 2 weeks, but you got to, for that 2 weeks, I'm putting 110% in promoting that track for the label. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's clear you're running a really clean operation. I mean, anything from the branding and your releases. I mean, I'm not surprised that you've taken, there's a saying that I really like, and it's nothing is original, right? The sense that we all take something that somebody else has learned and then we make it our own. And I think DTLA is a great label, and you've given platforms to people like Chapter and Verse, Charles D. I always say their name wrong. Cleaston Clutch, Papa Marlin. These are all guys that are great producers, and they're not like world famous. And again, you've released 37 tracks, and it's really, really inspiring to see. And I know there's a lot of young producers out there that feel like it's hard to release on a label for whatever reason, but you seem like someone who's very reachable, very willing to work and hear people out and help. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that, Jason.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, for real. What do you look for in a demo though, when people reach out to you though?
Okay, so the first thing I'll listen to is production quality. You know, now there's always things to go back and correct on a production standpoint. So that's not the end, but it's still got to be at the quality of the production. And I will be honest, a lot of the ones we get through the demo box don't even pass that qualification.
Okay.
But, so the second part I look is does it have, and as I was kind of mentioning earlier, does the track have a vocal idea? Does it have a vocal hook? Does it have an identity to it? Meaning, like, if I walk away from that track, am I going to remember about it? Am I going to, like, if I hear it, am I going to know that's a Redux Saints track? Am I going to know that's a DTLA style track? When I send stuff out on my DJ promos, is it going to be like, oh, this is another dope track from DTLA? Because that matters to me. It's like, I want the consistency in building the brand each time.
Yep.
I don't want one track to be like this, another track to be like night and day from it, and people being like, did they change their sound? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, you don't want to confuse the fans, like you said earlier.
Yeah. So that idea of building the track is huge with me, and that's a lot of time. That's what usually gets the cut from a lot of people. Now, if let's say there's parts that I feel like you can fix in both parts, that's when I start giving feedback to it.
Okay.
And that's when I start working with the producer potentially to to improve the track, or maybe not. Sometimes my feedback doesn't improve the track, but for the most part, it's in an effort to kind of just make it more in terms of like what we're trying to do. Now, when we say the identity of the track, we have the foundation, which is the groove. Then we have on top of that, we may have some stabs, some synth hits and stuff like that. That's usually the identity is really brought about maybe by a vocal hook,
right,
or a melodic hook, or maybe both. Tech house, it's a lot. Most of the time, it's the vocal hook, because you're still in the kind of house range where you're saying like, we still want to kind of do something that kind of you'll walk away remembering the track, and that's very different in different genres. Like in melodic techno, it's usually like the melodic hook. It's different. You may have a synth hit of over certain notes that sticks in your head. So that now we also sign different. So we have to apply that to both too. Like Charles D. is very different than chapter and verse.
Very different.
Night and day. Two different fan bases.
Yeah.
I would even say Charles D's fan base, because they're all like your kind of price guys. Like they're tough. They're tough. You don't want to screw around with them. They'll get mad. I mean, they'll get on your ass if you do something wrong. So there's different to us, and like that was another thing. It was like I didn't want to just house. I wanted it to be an underground house label, but still keeping it within the realm of what I consider underground. Like still consider house, tech house, and some techno to be like kind of fit in that category.
Right.
But that allows us, like if we do our label takeovers, to do a good, spectrum of music, or maybe we go house, tech house to, techno in the evening time.
Yeah, and that's certainly something to consider too, right? You have a label and you want to throw events, and you've done some really cool stuff recently, promoting a party. You had, I don't know how you did this, and you got to tell me, you got Charlie Sheen to promote a video, also Claude Von Stroke. Very creative, very funny, super unique. Well, how did you come up with that idea? How did you get in touch with them?
Yeah, without giving away my secrets.
You don't have to give away your secret, but it's pretty cool.
Let's just put it this way, that there's a mechanism to enable you to get in touch with them, or that the thing about them is, like, I think whatever the service is that helps get you in touch with these people, I think they caught on to me that, like, I was using it as a promotion, because there is a cost associated with it, and to do it as a promotion versus just a shout out, that's supposed to be like 10 times the amount of money. So like I got lucky early in the day here, but so there's guys who have turned me down. Like I wanted Snoop, he wasn't interested. But it is kind of cool to get them. Like, so we've got even like, so when I was younger in Chicago, they used to have the Just Say No parade. The Just Say No parades, you know, were the floats. That was like Ronald Reagan's, you know, kind of thing like that. So I sat at the table next to Alyssa Milano. And like, I even got like, it was kind of funny because like I met her, and like the big thing from that was like, she said, "Give me, I don't bite." So that's like my claim to fame about everything. Because I kissed Alyssa Milano when I was 13 years old. So when I was able to get her to do it, like I wrote it all up, and she like did it verbatim. I was like in heaven. I was like,
wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool thing to get like a shot, because no one else is doing that, I guess.
No one else is doing that. I thought it was really cool. That's why I think it was definitely worth mentioning. Yep. And you do so much cool stuff with your content, man, especially over the past year. Like I said earlier, DJs and producers never had more time, no shows. You got to come up with ways to stay relevant that unfortunately isn't just releasing music. And you put together these absurdly creative and hilarious videos, Haterade Ointment, P-Jug, DJ Request Stun Stick, which is my personal favorite. And like I just said, the DTLA videos too. How did you decide to, one, take a chance on doing that? I mean, you are a funny guy, of course, but it's one thing to be a funny guy and then put yourself out there like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it just came out of like pure boredom, like, you know, during the pandemic, you know. So we do these our live streams, and like what we would do is just like have commercial breaks, because like, you know, I would always, besides having 8 cameras, because we thought it was boring just to see someone standing in their living room, you know.
Agreed.
You know, I created these skits, and the skits were the intent to like kind of just show a side that, you know, one of the things that I think post recently, especially from John Summit, was just like, you know, if you take yourself too serious, you know, no one's going to take, you know, it's not the music, you know, the music's there to have fun. You know, this isn't, you know, business techno, you know, where you have to wear black, and like, you know, I'm not saying I wear black all the time. That's
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
But my point is like, you know, this is, we're all listening to music to escape, to have fun, to do it. And if you're too serious about it, I just think it's about, you know, so like these skits are kind of like an extension of me trying to like kind of, you know, just kind of get to people to know like my personality a little bit. But so I come up with these alternative, you know, kind of these, you know, these alternative personalities. You know, I do Chef Redux.
Yep.
You know, I've done like I told you, I'm doing a new one with Franz and Hans or Redux. I got the costume for that ready to go. You know, the Haterade Ointment was basically came out of like, I just saw a lot of people hating on like genres. We're getting fights between the tech house and the techno people. I'm just like, it's so stupid. Would it be nice to just rub some ointment on your nipples and then it would go away? And then like, you know, I've had some horror stories about people coming up to me doing requests for music, like, you know, like asking me for, you know, rest in peace Avicii, but like, I don't have a single Avicii song in my catalog.
Yeah.
People wouldn't get that and come up to me and request that while I'm playing. And it's like that. I got one time, it happened in an OC bar. You know, chick told the manager I was an asshole because I wouldn't play Avicii. So I was like, what would be a great way just to deter that would just, if you had a stun stick and you could just stun the requester.
Yeah.
Or the guy that comes up to you with, hey, want to do back to back? You know, and just stun him. So that's how that one came out. And then the P-Jug, it's just like, you know, if you drink like I do when I DJ, you need the P, you know. So this thing was just kind of came up with like, oh, you know, I started doing like a long trip P, you know, and then I saw these devices. They even had like, there are some funny other like parody videos of it, like where guys, there was like a guy, they think he's taking a sit, like a piss, but he takes a dump in it. Like it's like some really funny stuff. Anyway, with that. So like there are some other ones that we never got to. I wanted to do the Creeposaurus meter, which I get to the club. You know, the thermometer thing that takes your temperature.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You can walk up to someone and see how creepy they are in the club. Yeah. What was the other one I had? A couple other ones, which I just hadn't got to. But all these have scripts written out. And like, you know, I had like a crew. Oh, the one, I don't know if you've seen the one where we do the DTLA Cobra Kai Dojo.
Yes, that one was amazing too.
Yeah, so that was a good personality, like saying where I was acting like we did an Office parody kind of like how it was The Office, and I was the overconfident, bumbling idiot, a sensei Redux. And that one we filmed over the course of a day, and we had like extras and like
that was well made actually.
Yeah, and then we had a video editor. So yeah, that it was just overall fun to do, because again, it was just, I mean, during the pandemic in LA, everything was closed down. You couldn't go out, you couldn't go to restaurants, kind of create fun.
Absolutely. You're spending people who you want to spend it with and creating fun memories with the best you could. I know exactly what you mean. I was doing some weird shit too. I was, not that what you're doing was weird, but weird shit. I was doing DJ impersonations, and I dressed up like Fisher. I dressed up like Mala and Chami, and I did like 30-minute sets on Instagram and just played it did well. I had a fun time with it. Did clap tone, got the mask. And that was a point where I was like, I think I'm going crazy. Dressing up. But you know what? It worked, and a lot of people liked it, and it was fun, and it was different.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things you have to get as being a DJ is that you are a performer, and you have to get over really caring about like what people think.
Oh yeah.
Once you get to that point about not caring about things, then you can kind of just, act out or do. I mean, obviously, you need to be careful not to do. Like another thing I like to do is like I do. They're called Redux dub, where I basically would find horribly dubbed old kung fu movies, and then I would put my own voice over them, and then I did like a commentary on the like the clubs in LA, and I actually like was used people's names in the techno scene and stuff like it. But nowadays you just got to be careful that you're not doing something that can be a little bit too sensitive.
Man.
So but I mean, for the most part, as long as you're just not really being like rude, doing, so you can do stuff. But most of my humor centers around like music, so it's like people can kind of relate to the behavior of the clubs and DJs, and stuff like that. And then, if you're a DJ, the stuff with the stun gun, all those characters that come up to you, the promoter, and ask you all those stuff, 100% can relate, because it happens every single time you go out.
Every single time. No, DJs can relate. And there's this interesting culture about being a DJ and being in the scene, and I feel like I've been DJing for about 7 years now. I lived in Chicago for 6. I think you're at least 10 plus years. You've seen so many things change, genres, the culture, house music. What do you think has been some of the most interesting aspects of the industry, whether it be on the front or back end? And what do you think is going to come in the next few years too?
Well, I mean, I think the most interesting thing that happened was over the past like about 5-6 years. When I moved to LA, coming from Chicago.
Yeah.
Underground music in the main clubs. They're all playing, it was hip hop and EDM. So like you saw like all of a sudden Jamie Jones got a residency in Vegas.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you saw these people coming to Vegas. Then all of a sudden you saw like the shift in music. Mm-hmm. That was also right around when I think it was like around 2017. Mm-hmm. So it was, for me, it was good self-validation that like the music, I felt like finally was getting some respect,
Yeah.
I remember like in my early days, like DJ like in Los Angeles was like you got to be a lounge DJ or play top 40, and like I even went to this DJ school. It's called Scratch Academy, and I remember I failed the last class like 5 times because they were like, Jason, you look like you're dying up there. I'm like, I literally was, because I was having to play ratchet hip hop. I was having to play like EDM, like it just wasn't me. The gist of it,
Yeah.
And I couldn't fake do it, so I never passed that last class because you had to make it look like you were doing it for. But what I saw is that like all of a sudden everything changed from like what music was like being played and stuff, and I like that change, because it was like that was like what I felt like was like, I don't know, I felt like that was the music I connected to, so it was good to see that roll in. Now we're seeing it played everywhere. I just hope it doesn't become too commercial, or then it becomes EDM and gets like hate. Well, I think it's already there actually. It's going to get hated on, until something else. But like, I think one thing you just have to be careful with this is like everyone's got their opinion about everything, and like, you know what? I think you have your tastes. Everyone else, just be respectful of everyone's tastes. As long as you're not hating on stuff, apply some of that ointment to your nipples. Everything will be okay.
Yeah, is that for sale anywhere?
What was that?
Is that for sale anywhere? Because I could use some of that.
I wish that was one of the early days too. Like I didn't have, I didn't really edit the vocals, so you hear me like going into the microphone, like when I was doing it. And every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back and re-edit the vocals.
Yeah. That's okay. It's a well-made video. I think that really is a good perspective. And yeah, I agree with you, at least for the now where house and DJing is at. I can tell you in Chicago, man, it's only been back open for about 2 months or whatever. I played a few shows and people are looking for house. It's okay to play house. And you kind of have to, usher in the mainstream crowd, because I kind of sometimes call it open format house, lack of a better term. It's a house mashup, right? So it's some Travis Scott song with some chapter and verse song, or it's some ABBA song that mashes up into a Chami song, whatever it is. But it's I'm seeing waves of people actually dancing to it versus just being okay with it. And I think it's a good thing. But I mean, like any trend, we'll see how long that lasts. I'm never going to stop producing and listening to house. But I think where we're at right now, at least in the US, is a good spot for electronic music.
I concur.
Yeah. So brighter days are coming too, now that things are opening up again. But what's next for you? What's on the horizon, my man?
Well, we got another release coming out on July 16th. I'll send you over that track. So
Yes.
It's called Feel the Funk.
Okay.
So I found some really cool vocals that says, feel the funk, feel the groove, shake your junk, and show your moves.
Woo!
I was very enticed by those vocals. So we put that.
Were you?
Yeah, very, very, very enticed by that. There's a lot of things too, is like I'm doing the kind of the video in my head. Like, I'm not filming a per se, but like finding cuts of like people shaking, like it's maybe Beavis and Butthead shaking their junk,
Yeah.
A lot of people shaking their junk.
Yeah.
That's the 16th, but also on the 16th, as we have one of our first of hopefully many series. It's called Emerging Sounds.
Okay.
And basically, it's a label showcase of label in California area. Now, a lot of great music and a lot of big labels, or I won't say big, but up and coming labels are coming out of it. We have some already established ones. This is more for like the hood politics, the slightly sizzled, music for lovers, DTLA, all these very talented sounds are coming out. And I see it, being from Chicago and looking at the other areas, I don't see another area really, maybe this many labels in an area coming up with like some of the newer styles, or like even like having success with the dance tracks here. So what we're doing is we're having label showcase. It's in San Diego. It's going to be a couple of those labels that I just mentioned.
Cool.
I'm also doing a demo Dropbox at the beginning of it, so people can come up, meet me, drop off a demo box. So there's going to be some value coming to it early as well. You can, and I believe the other labels will be doing it. It's at the Encore Center in San Diego. We're planning for it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be like kind of a mini festival that we're doing. But the intent with that is to build it as do something every other month, where then we invite different labels to it. We may have some residency labels on it. The guy I'm doing it with is his label will be on it as well, DACA, and that's Tomas Serrano or DJ Ideal.
Oh,
he's huge in the San Diego scene. So him, I think Mr. Kool-Aid's playing on it. But yeah, the intent here is to really kind of grow that and give not only just, it's going to be across many genres as well too, but it's kind of exciting because I think there needs to be a showcase for those labels and those artists that don't necessarily get the love from Insomniac. Everyone would love to be on Insomniac, but not everyone's going to get the love. So this is kind of like that kind of, emerging sound that it's kind of showcase for it. We're kind of hoping to do, build the following, kind of like the Desert Heart folks did, the Repopulate Mars fan, So
that's a convention of sorts. I really like that. It's not just like going to a show and here's a label, all the DJs are behind the stage. I'll never really meet them. Maybe I can meet people in the crowd, but you guys are there. You're looking for the next best thing. You guys are being very self-aware of where you guys are at in your stages and helping each other out because you guys have your own following. Hood Politics, Slightly Sizzled, It's like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
There-
I mean,
there's
that's
crossing that needs to happen.
kind of the key, is really to tap into those different networks.
Yeah.
They all have their fan bases, and they all like good chance they like all the labels, that are because they have similar sounds, to it. Some have been around, a little bit longer than others and had a little bit more success than others, but bringing them all together for an event is kind of like something that, like, I was thinking be really cool to just demonstrate the talent coming out of it. And my idea was that eventually, do this a couple of times and then maybe do a press piece, that gets like an emerging sounds type of thing with one of the bigger mags for it. So,
Very cool, Jason. That's a genius idea, man. Well done.
cool. Yeah. Well, I hope hopefully it'll go well. Maybe hopefully, now that you're down with the HD crew, you can join us for one. They're not one, but I think probably a future one. So
I definitely could come. We could do some interviews on the side or before and after.
yeah, I mean, like, I really want it to be like more than just coming. Like, it's gonna be 3 rooms, so
Yeah.
obviously you can swap from different rooms if you get a little bored with something here or there. Food trucks, everything that's very like Southern California.
Got to have some burritos, right?
Yeah, that maybe like a skateboard pit. Not just kidding.
Maybe a cannabis dispensary too while you're at it.
That probably might be there. That might be there. I'm not.
And
Don't
the IPAs.
don't hold me to it, but yeah, the IPAs exactly.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Listen, thank you again for taking the time. I'm an even bigger fan now. You are awesome. You are an incredible producer. You're a badass label head, and you're a great dog dad too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you opening up
Anytime,
your
man.
story.
Thank you for having me, and anytime, hit me up.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to connecting again soon. Maybe we can meet in person before we know it too.
Sounds great.
Awesome, Jason. You have a good day. You enjoy Chicago. Hope the weather clears up. I'm gonna enjoy San Diego. I'm sorry I can't lie to you.
Tell all the boys I said hello.
I will, my friend. You have a good day. Thank you. Hey, what's up? And thanks for watching that video. You looking for more content now? I got your back. Go to my YouTube channel right now, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you turn on all notifications so you never miss any upcoming exclusive artist interviews, Sherman the Booth clips, new music, live sets, and more. This is your one-stop shop for everything electronic music. Cheers.